The millionaire hired specialists from around the world, but it was the cleaning lady who solved everything. You're about to discover an incredible story that will completely change how you think about intelligence, wisdom, and where real solutions come from. This tale will show you that sometimes the most brilliant minds overlook the simplest answers, and that true insight often comes from the most unexpected places. If you're ready for a journey that will open your mind and touch your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories like this one. Now, let's dive into this amazing tale that begins in the high-tech corridors of Silicon Valley, where million-dollar problems sometimes have 10-cent solutions. Chapter 1. The Crisis. That money couldn't solve the glass towers of Technova. Industries pierced the San Francisco skyline like gleaming monuments to human ambition. On the 47th floor, CEO Jonathan Mitchell paced frantically in his corner office, his usual composure shattered by a crisis that threatened to destroy everything he had built over 15 years. At 52, Jonathan was a legend in Silicon Valley, a self-made billionaire whose revolutionary data processing software had transformed how companies managed information worldwide. Technova employed over 8,000 people across 12 countries, and its stock price had made Jonathan one of the wealthiest tech entrepreneurs in America. His corner office, with its panoramic view of the Bay Area, was filled with awards, patents, and photographs of him meeting with world leaders and tech giants. But today, none of that mattered. Technova was facing the worst crisis in its corporate history. "The system failure is total," reported Dr. Sarah Chen, Technova's chief technology officer, her voice tight with stress. "Our primary servers crashed at 3 a.m., and the backup systems failed to engage properly. We've lost access to all client data, and the corruption appears to be spreading through our entire network." Jonathan slammed his fist on his mahogany desk. "How is that possible? We spent $50 million on redundant systems specifically to prevent this kind of catastrophe." "We don't know yet," Sarah replied, her face pale. "The failure pattern doesn't match anything in our diagnostic protocols. It's like the system is rejecting every repair attempt we make." Jonathan's phone had been ringing non-stop since dawn. Technova's software managed critical operations for banks, hospitals, airlines, and government agencies worldwide. Every minute the system remained down cost millions of dollars and put lives at risk. Emergency rooms couldn't access patient records, air traffic control systems were compromised, and financial markets were beginning to panic. "What's our timeline for restoration?" Jonathan asked, though he dreaded the answer. "At this rate, we honestly don't know. Our best programmers have been working for 18 hours straight, and we're actually losing ground. The corruption is spreading faster than we can contain it." Jonathan felt his stomach drop. Technova's contracts included severe penalties for extended downtime. If they couldn't restore service soon, the company would face billions in lawsuits and potential bankruptcy. Worse, people could die if critical systems remained offline much longer. "Get me the best technical experts money can buy," Jonathan ordered. "I don't care what it costs." Over the next 48 hours, Jonathan assembled what he called his digital dream team, the most expensive and brilliant minds in technology. Dr. Klaus Weber flew in from Germany, a systems architecture genius who commanded $5,000 per hour. Maria Petrov arrived from Moscow, a legendary programmer who had single-handedly saved 3 major corporations from similar crises. David Park came from Seoul, a data recovery specialist whose reputation was mythical in tech circles. The conference room on the 45th floor became a war room, filled with laptops, multiple monitors, whiteboards covered in complex diagrams, and empty energy drink cans. The specialists worked around the clock, their combined hourly fees exceeding $50,000. Jonathan barely left the building, surviving on catnaps in his office and takeout food. But despite their expertise and Jonathan's unlimited budget, the problem only got worse. "It's impossible," muttered Dr. Weber on the third day, his usually perfect composure cracking. "The system appears to be actively resisting our repairs. Every fix we implement gets undone within hours." "The corruption pattern makes no logical sense," added Maria Petrov, staring at screens filled with cascading error codes. "It's like the system has developed its own immune response against our interventions." Jonathan was desperate. Stock prices had plummeted 60%, and major clients were threatening to terminate their contracts. The media was calling it the Technova meltdown, and competitors were circling like vultures, offering to take over Technova's client base. On the fourth night, as rain pelted the windows of the conference room, Jonathan sat alone among the sleeping experts, wondering if this was how his empire would end. 15 years of innovation, thousands of jobs, billions in market value, all potentially destroyed by a technical problem that the world's best minds couldn't solve. It was then that he noticed her. Rosa Martinez, 58, moved quietly through the conference room, emptying trash cans and wiping down surfaces with the same methodical care she had shown for the past 7 years. Rosa worked the night shift, arriving at 10 p.m. and leaving at 6 a.m., invisible to most of the executives who worked during regular business hours. Rosa had immigrated from El Salvador 25 years earlier, working multiple jobs to support her 3 children while they attended school. She had completed high school in her home country and dreamed of becoming a teacher, but language barriers and economic necessity had led her to cleaning work instead. Over the years, she had worked for law firms, medical offices, and tech companies, always professional, always thorough, always invisible. But Rosa was not as invisible as people assumed. During her 7 years at Technova, she had developed an unusual understanding of the building's rhythms and systems. She knew which offices generated the most heat, which floors had humidity problems, and which equipment made different sounds when it was functioning properly versus when something was wrong. "Excuse me, sir," Rosa said quietly as she approached Jonathan's desk. Her English was accented but clear, refined through years of helping her children with homework and attending parent-teacher conferences. Jonathan looked up, surprised. In 7 years, he had probably spoken to Rosa fewer than a dozen times, and never about anything more substantial than pleasantries. "I'm sorry to bother you," Rosa continued, "but I noticed the specialists have been here for many days. Is there a problem with the computers?" Jonathan almost smiled despite his exhaustion. The idea that the cleaning lady might have insights into their technical crisis seemed absurd. "Yes, Rosa. We're having some difficulties with our main system. Very complicated computer problems." Rosa nodded thoughtfully. "The computers on this floor, they have been making different sounds for about a week. Not the normal humming. More like struggling sounds." "Struggling sounds?" Jonathan asked, his curiosity piqued despite himself. "Like when my old washing machine was breaking," Rosa explained. "Before it stopped working completely, it made angry noises, like it was fighting against something inside." Jonathan was about to dismiss this as irrelevant when something in Rosa's expression stopped him. She looked genuinely concerned, not just about the computers, but about the people who had been working so frantically to fix them. "Rosa," he said slowly, "when did you first notice these different sounds?" "About 10 days ago. I remember because it was the night after that big storm we had. I thought maybe the rain had gotten into something, but your maintenance people said everything was fine." Jonathan felt a spark of something, not quite hope, but curiosity. The storm, Rosa mentioned, had occurred exactly 2 days before their first system anomalies appeared. "Did you notice anything else different after the storm?" Rosa paused, considering. "Well, there was more dust than usual. And that smell." "What smell?" Like burning. Very faint, but I noticed it because I have to smell these things in my work. If something is burning in a building, it can be dangerous." Jonathan stood up abruptly. "Rosa, would you show me exactly where you noticed these sounds and smells?" Rosa looked confused but nodded. "Of course, sir." As they walked through the darkened corridors, Jonathan found himself seeing his own building through Rosa's eyes. She pointed out subtle details he had never noticed. The way air moved through certain vents, which areas accumulated dust more quickly, where humidity was higher or lower. "Here," Rosa said, stopping outside the primary server room. "The sounds are strongest here, and the burning smell comes from this direction." Jonathan had been in and out of the server room dozens of times over the past 4 days, but he had been focused on screens and data, not on physical conditions. Now, as Rosa stood quietly beside him, he tried to listen and smell the way she did, and then he heard it, a subtle, irregular whirring that was different from the normal server noise, and beneath the familiar scent of electronics and cooling systems, there was indeed a faint, burning odor. "Rosa," Jonathan said, his voice tight with sudden, Excitement. I think you may have just identified something very important. As they hurried back toward the conference room, Jonathan felt a mixture of hope and embarrassment. The world's most expensive technical experts had been focused on software solutions to what might be a hardware problem identified by a cleaning lady with no formal technical training. But Rosa's insights were about to prove more valuable than all the advanced degrees and certifications money could buy. Sometimes the most complex problems have simple solutions. You just need someone with the wisdom to look in the right place. The breakthrough was coming, but not from where anyone expected. If you're as intrigued as we are to see how Rosa's simple observations solve a billion-dollar crisis, make sure you've hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, because what happens next will completely change how you think about expertise and intelligence. Chapter 2. The Wisdom Hidden in Plain Sight. Jonathan burst into the conference room where the international experts were still hunched over their laptops, surrounded by empty coffee cups and the defeated atmosphere of brilliant minds hitting an impossible wall. "Dr. Weber, Ms. Petrov, Mr. Park," Jonathan called out, his voice carrying an energy that had been absent for days. "I need you to stop what you're doing and come with me immediately." The experts looked up with expressions ranging from confusion to mild irritation. They had been chasing increasingly complex software solutions, diving deeper into algorithmic analyses and theoretical frameworks that seemed to lead nowhere. "Jonathan," Dr. Weber said wearily, "we've run every diagnostic protocol known to computer science. Unless you've discovered some revolutionary new approach, I think we need to accept that this problem may be unsolvable with current technology." "Actually," Jonathan replied, "I think our approach has been completely wrong. Rosa, would you please tell these gentlemen what you observed about the building's systems?" The experts turned to look at Rosa with barely concealed skepticism. Here they were, world-renowned specialists with decades of experience and multiple PhD degrees, being asked to listen to insights from a cleaning lady who probably didn't even own a computer. Rosa shifted uncomfortably under their gaze, but spoke clearly. "I have worked in this building for 7 years. I know how things normally sound and smell. After the storm, 10 days ago, the computers on this floor began making different noises, struggling noises, and there is a burning smell near the big computer room." Maria Petrov exchanged a glance with Dr. Weber that clearly communicated their shared opinion about the value of this information. "With respect," she said diplomatically, "we've been monitoring all system performance metrics continuously. Our sensors would detect any hardware anomalies." "Would they detect humidity changes?" Rosa asked quietly. The question caught everyone off guard. David Park, who had been silent, suddenly looked interested. "What kind of humidity changes?" "After storms, buildings breathe differently," Rosa explained. "Moisture gets into places it shouldn't be. I've seen it cause problems in other offices where I've worked. Computers don't like moisture." Jonathan felt his pulse quicken. "Dr. Weber, when was the last time we checked the environmental controls in the server room?" "The environmental systems are monitored automatically," Dr. Weber replied dismissively. "If there were issues with temperature or humidity, we would receive alerts." "But what if the monitoring system itself was compromised?" Jonathan pressed. "What if the sensors weren't reporting accurately?" The experts looked at each other with dawning realization. In their focus on sophisticated software solutions, they had assumed that basic environmental monitoring was functioning properly. They had been trying to solve a digital problem when the root cause might be entirely physical. "Let's check the server room immediately," Jonathan ordered. The group made their way to the climate-controlled sanctuary that housed Technova's primary servers. The room was kept at a constant 68 degrees Fahrenheit with precisely controlled humidity levels. Any deviation from these parameters could cause catastrophic damage to the sensitive equipment. Dr. Weber pulled up the environmental monitoring dashboard on his tablet. According to our sensors, temperature is 68.2 degrees, humidity is 45%, well within normal parameters. But Rosa was already moving through the room, her experienced eyes and nose assessing the actual conditions rather than the reported ones. She paused near a large server rack in the corner, the same area where she had detected the burning smell. "Here," she said simply, pointing to a small vent near the ceiling. "Look." Jonathan followed her gaze and saw something that made his heart race. Water stains on the ceiling tiles around the vent. evidence of moisture intrusion that would never show up on digital monitoring systems. "Get me a ladder," Jonathan commanded. When maintenance brought a ladder, Jonathan climbed up to inspect the vent more closely. What he found confirmed Rosa's suspicions. The storm 10 days earlier had driven water through a small gap in the building's exterior ceiling, and that moisture had been slowly dripping into the server room's environmental systems. The humidity. "Sensors are water damaged," Jonathan called down from the ladder. "They're giving false readings. This room has been operating at nearly 80% humidity for over a week." Dr. Weber's face went white. 80% humidity would cause condensation on the circuit boards. That could create intermittent electrical connections, random failures, system corruption. "Exactly the symptoms we've been seeing," added Maria Petrov, her skepticism rapidly transforming into embarrassment. "We've been treating hardware problems as software issues for 4 days." David Park was already pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the emergency maintenance team. We need to dehumidify this room immediately and replace any moisture-damaged components." As the experts sprang into action, implementing the physical repairs that their sophisticated software analyses had missed entirely, Jonathan found himself standing beside Rosa in the corridor outside the server room. "Rosa," he said quietly, "how did you know to look for humidity problems?" Rosa smiled sadly. "My youngest daughter, she wanted to be a computer engineer. She studied very hard, got scholarships, went to university. She taught me that computers are like people. They work best when their environment is comfortable. Too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, they get sick just like us. Your daughter is an engineer now." "She was," Rosa replied, her voice carrying deep pain. "She died in a car accident 3 years ago, just after she graduated. She was so excited to start her career to help solve problems with technology." Jonathan felt a profound sense of shame wash over him. Here was a woman who had lost her engineer daughter, but retained enough of that knowledge to solve a problem that had stumped some of the world's best technical minds, and he had barely known her name, despite working in the same building for 7 years. "Rosa, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry that it took a crisis for me to realize how much wisdom you have to offer. I don't need apologies, Mr. Mitchell," Rosa said with quiet dignity. "I just want to help when I can. My daughter always said that the best solutions come from understanding the whole picture, not just the complicated parts." Over the next 6 hours, the maintenance team worked frantically to repair the environmental damage. They sealed the leak, replaced water-damaged sensors, dehumidified the server room, and replaced several circuit boards that had been compromised by moisture exposure. At 2 p.m. on the 5th day of the crisis, exactly 107 hours after the initial system failure, Technova's servers came back online. The recovery was remarkable. As humidity levels returned to normal and damaged components were replaced, the mysterious immune response that had been fighting their repair attempts simply disappeared. The system corruption stopped spreading, backup systems engaged properly, and within hours all client data was fully restored. Jonathan stood in the server room, watching status lights turn from red to green across dozens of server racks, feeling a mixture of relief and profound humility. The crisis that had nearly destroyed his company, a crisis that had stumped experts charging $5,000 per hour, had been solved by a cleaning lady who earned $15 per hour, but possessed something that all their advanced degrees couldn't provide: practical wisdom and careful observation. Dr. Weber approached Jonathan, looking sheepish. "The preliminary damage assessment is complete. The water intrusion was minimal, but it created a perfect storm of conditions that made the symptoms appear completely random. No amount of software analysis would have identified this as an environmental issue. How much would this crisis have cost us if Rosa hadn't identified the real problem?" Jonathan asked. "Conservative estimate? $2 billion in penalties, lawsuits, and lost business, plus potential bankruptcy if we couldn't restore service." Jonathan looked through the glass wall at Rosa, who was quietly resuming her cleaning duties, as if she hadn't just saved his company from destruction. She had identified the root cause of a multi-billion-dollar crisis in less than 5 minutes, using nothing but experience, intuition, and the kind of observational skills that come from years of paying attention to details that others ignore. The international experts were packing up their equipment, preparing to return to their respective countries. They would be paid handsomely for their efforts, despite the fact that their sophisticated approaches had been completely ineffective. But Rosa would return to her night shift tomorrow, earning her regular hourly wage, invisible once again to the executives whose empire she had just saved. Jonathan realized that was about to change. Rosa Martinez had just taught him the most valuable lesson of his career, that wisdom and intelligence come in many forms, and that sometimes the most important insights come from the people you least expect to have them. It was time to ensure that Technova never again overlooked the incredible value of practical wisdom, or the people who possessed it. Chapter 3. Recognition. Long overdue. The next morning, Jonathan Mitchell stood before Technova's executive board, delivering news that should have been catastrophic, but instead felt like a revelation. The 12 board members, venture capitalists, industry veterans, and corporate leaders listened in stunned silence as he explained how their near bankruptcy had been averted, not by expensive consultants, but by a night shift cleaning lady they had never heard of. "Let me understand this correctly," said Patricia Hoffman, the board chairwoman. "Our $50 million redundancy systems failed, our emergency protocols were useless, and the world's most expensive technical experts couldn't solve the problem. But a janitor identified the root cause in 5 minutes. Rosa Martinez is not a janitor," Jonathan replied firmly. "She's a highly observant professional who understood our building systems better than any of us. Her insights saved us approximately $2 billion and preserved the livelihoods of 8,000 employees worldwide." Board member Robert Chen leaned forward. "What's our liability exposure from this incident?" "Minimal, thanks to Rosa's quick diagnosis. We restored service before triggering the most severe penalty clauses in our contracts. Our insurance will cover most of the direct costs, and client confidence is already recovering." Jonathan had spent the early morning hours reviewing Rosa's employment file, learning details about her life that shamed him. She had been working at Technova for 7 years without a single absence or complaint. Her supervisor ratings were consistently excellent. She had requested overtime shifts whenever possible to help pay for her daughter's college education, and after her daughter's death, she had continued working extra hours to send money to her elderly parents in El Salvador. Despite her reliability and dedication, Rosa had never received a promotion, a meaningful raise, or even basic recognition from company leadership. She was invisible, a reliable, competent professional who was valued just enough to keep employed, but never enough to truly see. "What do you propose we do about this situation?" asked board member David Walsh. Jonathan had been thinking about that question all night. "I propose we fundamentally change how this company thinks about intelligence, expertise, and value. Rosa Martinez possesses the kind of practical wisdom that no amount of formal education can provide. We nearly lost everything because we assumed that expensive credentials automatically translate to superior insight." He pulled up a presentation he had prepared at 4 a.m. "I want to create a new position, Director of Operational Intelligence. The role would involve identifying problems and solutions that traditional technical approaches might miss. I want to offer this position to Rosa." The board exchanged glances. They were progressive thinkers who valued innovation, but promoting a cleaning lady to a director-level position was unprecedented in their experience. "What are her qualifications for such a role?" Patricia asked carefully. 7 years of flawless performance, demonstrated expertise in building systems, exceptional observational skills, and the ability to solve problems that stumped some of the world's leading technical experts, Jonathan replied. "What more qualification do we need?" "But she doesn't have a college degree," Robert pointed out. "How do we justify that to our other employees? How do we justify nearly destroying the company because we were too arrogant to listen to her?" Jonathan countered. "Results matter more than credentials. Rosa Martinez just proved she understands our operations better than our most highly paid consultants." After 2 hours of discussion, the board approved Jonathan's proposal with one condition. Rosa would need to accept the position voluntarily, and the company would provide her with additional training and support to help her succeed in her new role. That afternoon, Jonathan asked Rosa to meet him in his office. She arrived promptly at 3 p.m., still wearing her cleaning uniform, looking nervous about being summoned to the executive level during daylight hours. "Please, sit down, Rosa," Jonathan said, gesturing to the comfortable chairs near his window rather than the formal conference table. Rosa perched on the edge of the chair, clearly uncomfortable. "Am I in trouble, Mr. Mitchell? I know I spoke up during your meeting, but I was just trying to help." "Rosa, you're not in trouble, quite the opposite." Jonathan leaned forward, choosing his words carefully. "What you did yesterday saved this company from bankruptcy. Your observations and insights were more valuable than anything our expensive consultants provided." Rosa looked confused. "I just noticed things that seemed wrong. Anyone could have done that." "But no one else did," Jonathan emphasized. "For 4 days, the smartest technical minds I could hire missed what you identified immediately. That's not luck, that's wisdom and expertise." He handed her a formal job offer letter. "Rosa, I'd like to offer you a new position with Technova, Director of Operational Intelligence, reporting directly to me. Your job would be to help us identify problems and solutions that our traditional approaches might miss." Rosa stared at the letter without opening it. "I don't understand. I clean offices. I don't know about computers or business. You know about systems, about observation, about practical problem solving. Yesterday you demonstrated more intelligence about our operations than people with multiple PhDs." Jonathan paused. "The salary is $125,000 per year, plus benefits and stock options." Rosa's hands trembled as she opened the letter. When she saw the salary figure, tears began forming in her eyes. "This is more money than I ever imagined earning. But Mr. Mitchell, I don't have the education for such a job. I only finished high school." "Rosa, can I tell you something about education?" Jonathan said gently. "I have an MBA from Stanford, and I almost lost my company because I was too educated to notice a water leak. You have something more valuable than any degree, practical wisdom and the ability to see what others miss." "But what will people think? Your other executives, they have advanced degrees, expensive suits. They'll think what I think, that we're lucky to have someone with your insights helping us make better decisions." Jonathan stood and walked to his window. "Rosa, your daughter studied to be an engineer, didn't she?" "Yes, sir. Computer engineering. She was so smart, so dedicated. What would she think about this opportunity?" Rosa was quiet for a long moment, considering. "She always said that the best engineering came from understanding how things really worked, not just how they were supposed to work. She said books could teach you theory, but experience taught you truth. Then you know what she would want you to do." Rosa wiped her eyes and looked directly at Jonathan. "If I accept this position, I want to make sure I deserve it, not just because I got lucky once, but because I can really help the company. We'll provide you with training, mentorship, whatever support you need. But Rosa, you already deserve this opportunity. You've earned it through 7 years of excellent work, and by saving us from a crisis that could have destroyed everything." Rosa stood up, her decision made. "Then I accept, Mr. Mitchell, and I promise you won't regret this." As they shook hands, Jonathan felt a profound shift in his understanding of leadership and value. For 15 years, he had built Technova by hiring the smartest people with the best credentials, but he had never considered that intelligence came in many forms, and that sometimes the most valuable insights came from unexpected sources. "Rosa, there's one more thing," Jonathan said. "I want you to help me create a new program for Technova, a way to ensure that we never again overlook the wisdom and insights of any employee, regardless of their position or background." Rosa smiled, the first truly relaxed smile he had ever seen from her. "I would be honored to help with that. Sir, my daughter always said that the best companies were the ones where everyone's intelligence was valued." As Rosa left his office to begin her transformation from cleaning lady to executive, Jonathan realized that she had taught him something more valuable than crisis management. She had shown him that true leadership meant recognizing and nurturing intelligence wherever it appeared, and that the most important expertise often came from the people who were closest to the actual work. Technova was about to become a very different kind of company, one that valued wisdom as much as credentials, observation as much as theory, and practical intelligence as much as academic achievement. And it all started with a cleaning lady who had the courage to speak up when she noticed something was wrong. Chapter 4. The Company That Learned to Listen. 6 months after Rosa Martinez saved Technova from near bankruptcy, the company had undergone a transformation that extended far beyond crisis management. The executive floor that had once been the exclusive domain of MBAs and PhDs now included voices from every level of the organization, creating an atmosphere of collaborative problem-solving that surprised competitors and impressed clients. Rosa's corner office, just down the hall from Jonathan's, reflected her unique role perfectly. One wall displayed the advanced monitoring systems she had helped design, while another featured photographs of Technova employees from around the world. The custodial staff, security guards, cafeteria workers, and administrative assistants whose insights had become integral to company operations. The quarterly report shows remarkable results, Rosa reported during the Monday morning executive meeting. She had adapted to her role with natural grace, her initial nervousness replaced by quiet confidence. Our new employee observation program has identified and resolved 43 potential problems before they became critical issues. Jonathan smiled as he reviewed the data. The program Rosa had helped design encouraged employees at every level to report observations about unusual patterns, unexpected changes, or potential problems, no matter how minor they seemed. The program had already prevented 2 server failures, identified a security vulnerability, and even caught an accounting error that could have cost millions. "What's our employee satisfaction rating?" asked Sarah Chen, who had become one of Rosa's strongest supporters after initially doubting her qualifications. 91%, Rosa replied, the highest in company history. People feel valued when their observations and insights are taken seriously, regardless of their job title. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. Some executives had initially resisted taking suggestions from support staff, and a few technical specialists had felt threatened by the idea that non-experts might identify problems they had missed. But results spoke louder than prejudice, and even the skeptics had been won over by the program's effectiveness. Jonathan's phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. "The Forbes reporter is here for your interview." The interview was part of a feature story about innovative management practices in Silicon Valley. Word had spread through business circles about Technova's unusual approach to organizational intelligence, and several major publications had requested interviews about their democratization. To have expertise, Michael Harrison from Forbes entered the conference room with a photographer, ready to document what many business schools were already calling the Technova model. "Mr. Mitchell," Harrison began, "your company's approach to employee input has attracted significant attention. Can you explain how promoting a cleaning lady to director level has impacted your operations?" Jonathan glanced at Rosa, who had initially been reluctant to participate in media interviews but had agreed to help share their story. Rosa Martinez wasn't promoted because she was a cleaning lady. She was promoted because she possesses exceptional operational intelligence. Her background in building maintenance gave her insights that our traditional technical approaches had missed. "Ms. Martinez," Harrison turned to Rosa, "how has your transition to executive leadership been received by employees with traditional business backgrounds?" Rosa considered the question carefully. "At first, some people were confused or skeptical. They thought I didn't belong in meetings with people who had advanced degrees, but when they saw that my suggestions worked, when they realized that different types of experience can solve different types of problems, they became supportive." "Can you give us a specific example?" "Last month, our Hong Kong office was experiencing intermittent network slowdowns that our IT team couldn't diagnose," Rosa explained. "During a video conference, I noticed that the slowdowns only happened during certain times of day. I asked the building maintenance supervisor in Hong Kong to check if there were any patterns with elevator usage or HVAC systems. She pulled up a chart on her tablet. It turned out that the building's elevator motors were creating electromagnetic interference with our servers during peak usage hours. Our IT specialists had been looking for software solutions to a hardware problem. The maintenance supervisor was able to install shielding that solved the issue completely." Harrison looked impressed. "And this kind of cross-departmental problem-solving has become standard practice?" "We've learned that complex problems often require diverse perspectives," Jonathan answered. "Our most innovative solutions now come from teams that include people with different types of expertise, not just technical degrees, but practical experience, operational knowledge, and intuitive observation skills." The photographer captured images of Rosa at her desk, reviewing monitoring systems that combined traditional technical data with observational reports from employees throughout the company. The visual contrast was striking. A woman who had once been invisible to management, now central to the company's decision-making process. What advice would you give to other companies considering similar approaches? Harrison asked. Rosa looked thoughtful. Don't assume that the people closest to problems can't help solve them. The security guard who walks through your building every night might notice things that engineers miss. The cafeteria worker might understand employee stress patterns better than HR specialists. Everyone has intelligence. You just need to create ways for that intelligence to be heard. Jonathan nodded. We also learned that you have to genuinely value different types of contributions. You can't just ask for input and then ignore it. When people see that their observations lead to real changes, they become more engaged and more willing to share insights. After the interview, Jonathan and Rosa walked together through Technova's main floor, observing the bustling activity of a company that had learned to harness collective intelligence. Employees at every level now understood that their observations mattered, and the result was a more alert, engaged, and effective organization. Any regrets about leaving your cleaning position? Jonathan asked, as they paused near the server room where Rosa had first identified the humidity problem. Rosa smiled. I miss the quiet of night shifts sometimes, but I love knowing that my daughter's dream of using technology to solve problems is living on through this work. She always believed that the best solutions came from understanding systems completely, not just the complicated parts, but how all the pieces work together. She would be proud of what you've accomplished. She would be proud that we've created a place where everyone's knowledge matters, Rosa corrected, gently. The promotion was nice, but the real change is cultural. We've become a company that listens. As they returned to their offices, Jonathan reflected on how profoundly his understanding of leadership had evolved. 6 months ago, he had believed that the most valuable employees were those with the most impressive credentials. Rosa had taught him that true organizational intelligence came from recognizing and nurturing wisdom wherever it appeared. Technova's stock price had recovered completely and was now trading at record highs. Industry analysts attributed the company's resilience to its innovative management practices and robust problem-solving capabilities. Major corporations were sending delegations to study Technova's approach, and business schools were developing case studies about their model. But for Jonathan, the most important measure of success wasn't financial. It was the knowledge that his company had become a place where intelligence was valued in all its forms, where practical wisdom was respected alongside theoretical knowledge, and where the insights of a night shift cleaning lady could be just as valuable as those of a world-renowned consultant. Rosa Martinez had saved Technova from a crisis, but more importantly, she had taught them how to prevent future crises by listening to the collective wisdom of their entire workforce. She had transformed a company that hired specialists into a company that recognized that everyone was a specialist in something. And in a world that too often confused credentials with capability, that lesson was worth more than all the advanced degrees money could buy. The story of Rosa Martinez and Technova reminds us that wisdom and intelligence come in many forms, and that the most valuable insights often come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who see most clearly, and sometimes the simplest observations can solve the most complex problems. Rosa's journey from cleaning lady to corporate executive shows us that true intelligence isn't about degrees or credentials. It's about observation, understanding, and the courage to speak up when you notice something is wrong. If this story opened your eyes to the hidden wisdom all around us, please like this video. To help us share this important message with others, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories about recognizing value in unexpected places, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss content that could change how you see the world. What insights have you gained from someone others might have overlooked? Share your story in the comments below, and remember, everyone has something valuable to contribute if we just take the time to listen.